Welcome to your first lesson of Phase 4, Relational Strength. This one is important because when it comes to our behaviors, two of our primary drivers are seeking love and a feeling of belonging. Both are essential for us as human beings. But what does relationship mean to you? Let's do an exercise. I want you to imagine the most beautiful relationship you can think of with your parents, partner, children, and close friends. How would you show up for them, and vice versa? How would you show your love for them? What would you wish for them? Give it a bit of time and put me on pause while you think or make notes. Now, with your answers in mind, I want you to ask yourself a simple but powerful question. How does that differ from your relationship with yourself? How do you show up for you? How do you show love for you? What do you wish for you? For most men, these answers are uncomfortable because the truth is that for most of us, there's a significant difference between our relationship with ourselves and our ideal relationship with others. We fail to realize that the most important relationship we will ever have, the one that shapes every other one, is the relationship we have with ourselves. Your relationship with you is the foundation of your relationship with others, and it determines the quality of relationships we're capable of with others. It's like in the airplane when the captain says that in the case of an emergency, we need to put our own oxygen mask on before we help others. Because if we can't breathe, it's extremely limited what we can do for others. And this is the exact reason why the phases are laid out in the order they are. Because up until now, you've been laying the foundation. You've been building your relationship with you. In Phase 1, you worked on your physical health and strength. In Phase 2, you built mental discipline and focus. In Phase 3, you stepped into emotional maturity, learning how to feel, process, and understand your inner world. You have started cleaning up your past and have come to understand who you truly are. You have seen who the best version of you is and have already taken multiple steps forward towards that version. Now, in Phase 4, we bring everything you've learned and done into the relational space. We explore what it means to live in connection with others, as a partner, as a father, as a friend, and as a man among men. But here's the thing. You can't show up fully in any of your relationships if you don't first know how to show up for yourself. And that's why we begin Phase 4 with you. Not with your partner, your kids, or your friends, but with you. Because the way you feel about yourself and the way others can see you treat yourself sets the tone for all of your relationships. Today, we're going to talk about 3 pillars of that inner relationship: self-respect, self-trust, and self-dialogue. This is an extension of topics we've already covered. And then we'll explore what it means to actually be with yourself, without escape, without over-attachment, and without running. In Phase 3, you did the hard work of reclaiming your self-worth. You saw that you're not broken, you're not weak, you're not simply the sum of your wounds and your survival strategies. You are valuable, you are lovable, and you are worthy of all the good in this world. But that belief of self-worth needs to be put into action. And that's where self-respect comes in. Self-worth says, I matter. Self-respect answers, so I'll treat myself like I do. And this is where many men get stuck. They might feel a flicker of worth inside, but then they trash their bodies, let people cross their boundaries, break their own promises, or even self-sabotage, and talk to themselves in ways they would never talk to anyone else. Self-respect is what turns worth into reality. It's the daily practice of treating yourself like the man you're becoming, even when no one else is watching. Self-respect is about living in a way that matches what you know, that you are worthy of care, of respect, and of love. Because if you don't respect yourself, You will either spend your life chasing respect from others or tolerate disrespect from them. And none of that will ever give you what you really want. You have to clearly show the level of your respect for you if you want others to show you the same level of respect. If we flip that, you can't expect to have mutually respectful relationships if you cling on to people-pleasing as your survival mechanisms. Because you'll keep hiding your truth, your boundaries, and what you stand for, which makes it impossible for anyone to respect you for who you are. Not out of bad will, but simply because you are not showing them. Letting go of that pattern and standing strong in your self-respect is what creates healthy, lasting relationships. Now let's talk about self-trust. Think about how trust works in any relationship. It isn't built through big words or grand gestures. It's built through consistency, through actions repeated over time. It's no different with yourself. So let me ask you this. Do you trust yourself? Most men don't. And the reason is simple. They keep breaking promises to themselves. They say, tomorrow I'll wake up early, and then they hit snooze. They say, I'll stop at 2 beers, and then they keep going. They say, I'll start the project next week, but months pass and nothing happens. Every broken promise, no matter how small, kills your self-trust. It tells your subconscious, I can't rely on me. But the opposite is also true. Every kept promise builds momentum. Every action that takes you closer to the man you want to become makes you stronger. We already talked about that back in phase 2. When you trust yourself, you become a powerhouse. Because when you know your own word is solid, when you know you'll follow through, you stop wasting energy negotiating with yourself. You stop second guessing. You just do what you've agreed with yourself. That frees up an enormous amount of energy you can use in your relationships, in your work, and in your personal growth. And people can feel that reliability. They trust you more because they can see that you trust you. You could also call this integrity. Self-trust and integrity are really two sides of the same coin. Integrity is when your actions match your values and your words. When you do what you say and say what you do. Self-trust is when you know without a doubt that you'll live that integrity. And personally, integrity means the world to me in all of my relationships. I know I can trust myself when it comes to living up to my words. It's part of how I see myself. It's part of my identity, and I expect the same from those in my inner circle. Because that's how we keep each other safe. We can rely on each other, and there are no surprises. The thing is, when you keep breaking your word to yourself or others, your self-confidence drops, and everyone else's confidence in you drops as well. So ask yourself this. If I am not a man of my word, how can I expect others to live up to their promises to me? And what kind of relationships would I be able to build without the trust I built through integrity? Being a whole man means your words and actions line up. That's when you become solid as a rock. The kind of man both you and others can rely on. A man of self-trust lived out as integrity. Staying on the topic of words, back in phase 3, we already worked on your inner dialogue, noticing the critic inside and shifting towards something more curious and compassionate. Now we take it one step further, because the way you speak to yourself doesn't just shape your inner world, it sets a tone for your outer relationships too. If you attack yourself, you'll end up attacking others or letting them attack you. If you ignore your own needs, you'll also end up ignoring the needs of others or allowing them to ignore yours. But when you practice respect and compassion in your own hand, that naturally flows outward. You begin speaking to your partner, your children, and your friends in the same way, calmly, clearly, and kindly. So think of self-dialogue in this phase, not just as healing, but as training. Training for how you'll show up in connection, in conversation, and in conflict. Because what's on your mind comes out of your mouth. Or in other words, every word you speak to yourself is practice for the words you'll speak to the people who matter most. For example, if your inner voice is constantly harsh and critical, that tension will leak into your tone with others. But when you practice speaking to yourself with respect, it's much easier to stay calm in conversation and even in conflict. Your partner, children, and friends can feel that steadiness, and it changes the whole dynamic for the better. If you're kind to yourself, being kind to others becomes far easier. Okay, the last thing I will talk about in this lesson on your relationship with you is learning to be with yourself. Because a lot of men escape themselves. We bury our lives in work, in exercise, in alcohol, in porn, in endless scrolling. We have talked about these coping mechanisms before. We use them to avoid sitting still because silence brings feelings and feelings bring pain. Other men overattach. We can't stand being alone, so we cling on to relationships for validation, for identity, and a sense of wholeness. Both patterns come from the same root, discomfort with ourselves. But here is what you need to understand. If you cannot be at peace with yourself, you will never be at peace with others. Attachment theory explains this well. Anxious attachment clings. Avoidant attachment pushes away. But secure attachment, the kind that makes love, friendship, and connection thrive, starts with being secure within yourself. So here's the practice. Each day, spend time alone without distraction. No screen, no music, no numbing. Just you. Sit, walk, breathe, and allow yourself to feel what's going on inside you. Ask yourself how you feel as if you were talking to a close friend and see what comes up. Don't think, just feel. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. Maybe you feel bored, maybe anxious, maybe all grief shows up. That's okay, that's progress. The good news is that the harder you worked in phase 3, the easier this exercise will be. The more comfortable you are with yourself, because you know yourself better than ever, and you've learned to accept and appreciate who you are. And the more you can be with yourself, the less you need to escape and the less you need to cling. And from that place, you can enter relationships as a whole man, not as a half man looking for someone else to complete him. You are not needy, but full. And that allows you to show up in a totally different way. For example, you can be with your partner in her emotions because you have yours under control. You don't need to pull away or shut her or yourself down or try to fix her. You can just be there, which is exactly what she needs. That's presence. And that's how real intimacy is built. The key takeaway from this lesson is that every relationship you will ever have is built on the relationship you have with yourself. In the next lesson, we'll look outward. We'll explore how you show up in every relationship that matters. But it all begins here with the man in the mirror. As always, it's time to go to the challenge for your integration. See you in the next lesson.